Good evening, guys. In the last session, we discussed about what is Jenkins. Okay. In the last session, we discussed about what is Jenkins, and we discussed about why Jenkins, what is Jenkins, and why Jenkins, Jenkins setup, Jenkins setup, Jenkins with Docker integration, and we have seen Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. What is Jenkins? Why Jenkins? Jenkins setup, Jenkins with Docker integration, and Jenkins CI/CD pipeline we have discussed. So can you tell me what is Jenkins and why we should go for Jenkins? Jenkins is a CI/CD software which is used to automate project build and deployment process. So earlier, people used it to perform manual build and deployment. Manual build and deployment will take a lot of time, right? And there are some challenges with manual build and deployment. To overcome these challenges, to overcome the challenges of manual build and deployment, we are doing Jenkins. So Jenkins is developed using Java. So first we need to set up Java, then we need to set up Jenkins. And we are integrating Jenkins with Docker. Jenkins with Docker integration is there so that Jenkins can perform the CI/CD process. What is the meaning of CI/CD? Continuous integration and continuous deployment. We are able to automate project build and deployment process by using Jenkins. Is this clear for all of you? Good. Anyone facing any challenges with Jenkins? Anybody facing any challenges with Jenkins, guys? Anybody facing any challenges with Jenkins? Jenkins with Docker. Or we can say Jenkins with CI/CD. Jenkins CI/CD. Jenkins CI/CD. Right. What is Jenkins? Why Jenkins? Challenges with manual build and deployment process. Build and deployment process. Challenges with manual build and deployment process. Challenges with manual build and deployment. Jenkins introduction. Why automation is required. Jenkins introduction. We learned the Jenkins introduction and we discussed about Jenkins setup, Jenkins with Docker integration. Okay. So Jenkins CI/CD pipeline, Jenkins CI/CD pipeline, and we learned Git plus, Maven plus, Docker plus Jenkins. So this is the project that we have configured. Okay. Yeah. Now, did anyone practice this project that we have done in the Jenkins class? Anybody facing any challenges? Anybody having any doubts? Anybody having any doubts? Anybody facing any challenges?
Sir, when we were using that git command, hello.
Yes, sir. Tell me. Yeah.
Sir,
Tell me.
do we have to learn those? Sir, do we have to learn that steps or Linux commands which we are using in the Linux for Jenkins?
Yes, you have to remember. You have to learn those commands. You should know those.
And in interview, are they going to ask that?
Yeah,
sir?
some basic Linux knowledge is required for every developer also, sir. Basic knowledge is required for every developer. You should be able to work with that one.
Sir, basic Linux commands I know, but that's
No,
Suppose
you no need to remember those commands, installation commands and all. Those are no need to buttify, sir. That's not required.
Acha, in interview they are not going to ask those things.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Why? Because we are just copy pasting it from the Git. No.
Yeah, that is fine. The setup you are asking now.
Yes, sir.
That is not, no need to by heart that. I will also copy from the internet.
So, sir, some people are telling that on the official website it's given. If someone does
Yes,
not
in the
know.
Jenkins website, the commands. I also copied from the Jenkins website only, sir. I have
Okay.
copied those commands from the Jenkins website only. Guys, he's asking a question. Do we need to by heart the commands? Do we need to by heart the commands to install the Jenkins software? No. So commands for working with the Jenkins setup, that's you no need to by heart. If you go to the official Jenkins website, you can find those commands. There is an official website for the Jenkins. Okay, go to the Jenkins documentation. Installing Jenkins. I want to install Jenkins in the Linux. So here the commands, whatever the commands I have given, this is the command. You can copy from the official website also. You don't need to by heart that. So first we need to install Java. So here you are going to install the Java software. Once the Java is installed, this is Jenkins installation process. You don't need to by heart this. The official website, it is available. Installation of Jenkins. Okay. So we understood what is build and deployment, and we understood what are the challenges with the manual build and deployment process. Okay. Challenges with the build and deploy, challenges in manual process, challenges in manual build and deployment. Perfect. Challenges in manual build and deployment. Okay. Every day we need to do the deployment, and we need to deploy the same code in multiple environments, and it is going to take a lot of time and repeated work we need to do, and error prone. Getting the challenges is there. Now, what is Jenkins? So what is Jenkins, guys? Jenkins is free and open source software. Jenkins is free and open source software. It is developed using Java language, and Jenkins can be used with other projects also. .NET project deployment can be done by using Jenkins. Python project deployment can be done by using Jenkins. And Jenkins setup we are able to do. The next part, Jenkins pipeline, guys. Okay. Jenkins CI/CD pipeline, which is Jenkins declarative pipeline. So how we are going to write Jenkins declarative pipeline? What is the syntax to write the Jenkins declarative pipeline? First, we are going to write pipeline. Inside the pipeline, we are going to write stages. Inside the stages, stage will be available. For every stage, one name will be available. Inside the stage, steps will be available. Echo, I'm writing a message, welcome to Ashokite. So this is the syntax of our CI/CD pipeline. This is a declarative pipeline, which is starting with the pipeline keyword. Then stages will be available. Here you can write multiple stages. Then every stage should have unique name. Now, what is the stage that we have done? The real pipeline, guys, Jenkins plus Docker integration. I mean to say Git plus Maven plus Docker plus Jenkins integration. Okay. Git plus Maven plus Docker plus Jenkins integration. What we have done in this pipeline, the very first step in this pipeline, configure Maven as a global tool. Configure Maven as global tool. Second step, install Docker in Jenkins machine. Then after, restart Jenkins server. Restart Jenkins server. Then fourth step, create CI/CD pipeline. So this is the process we have done. So first one we discussed about Jenkins CI/CD, right? what is build and deployment process. So taking the latest code from the GitHub, compiling that code, executing the test cases, packaging that application, creating the Docker image, creating the Docker container. This is a build and deployment process. If you do that process manually, there are some challenges available. So that's why we need to automate that process. To automate that process, we are going for Jenkins. Jenkins is a free and open source software. This Jenkins is developed using Java language, and it is used to automate build and deployment process of our application. Using this, we can implement CI/CD, nothing but continuous integration and continuous deployment. How to do that Jenkins setup? I have given one GitHub document. Here I have given step by step how to do the GitHub document setup is available. Jenkins declarative pipeline syntax. Okay. So here, if it is starting with the pipeline, that is called declarative. Inside this one, we are going to write one more line, which is called agent any. So we don't know in which agent it is going to run. Currently, we don't have any agents. So I'm giving agent any. Then we have stages. So when we go for stages, stage hello is available. It is echo statement. This one you can execute. Git plus Maven plus Docker plus Jenkins integration. Okay. Now here I'm giving my GitHub repository. My code is available in the GitHub repository. That means the project that you want to deploy, Maven web application. In this repository, our Docker file is also available. This is my code repository URL. Okay. This repository URL we used in our pipeline for the CI/CD process. So once we have Jenkins setup ready, what is the next step? We need to configure Maven as global tool, and we need to install Docker in the Jenkins machine, and we need to restart our Jenkins server, and we need to create CI/CD pipeline. Got it? So once it is done, how the pipeline is looking? Pipeline, final pipeline, guys. Final CI/CD pipeline. How we created that final pipeline in the yesterday session. Final CI/CD pipeline. So it is starting with a keyword called pipeline keyword. Inside this, we are going to specify agent any, and we are going to configure tools. Maven we are using as a global tool. Maven. What is the name I have given for that? M3. Whatever the name you give in the global tool, that name you need to configure. Then we will have stages. Inside that stage, first stage is git clone. Git clone. So inside the stage, what will be available? Steps will be available. Git. I'm going to specify my Git repository URL. Okay. So this is my Git repository URL. This stage is used to clone GitHub repository in our Jenkins machine. Then next stage. So what is the next stage here? The next stage is Maven build. How do we do Maven build? sh mvn clean package. Mvn clean package. Okay. Once a Maven package is completed, then what is the next step, guys? Then build image. Build image for our application. What is the command to build the image? Docker build -t image name space dot. So with this name, Docker image will be created. Then what is the next step after image build? Deployment. That means we need to deploy our application in the container. So for this, what we are going to do? Docker run -d -p 9090:8080 space --name Ashok IT container space Ashok IT app. Image name we are giving. I'm giving name for the container, and I'm giving image name, which is going to create Docker container for our application. Why I am not using 8080 for the host port? Jenkins already using 8080. That's why container is using 8080, but Jenkins is using 9090. Container using 8080, Jenkins going to use 9090. Able to follow this? Good. Stage deployment. So this is our final CI/CD pipeline that we created in the yesterday session. Once this final pipeline is created, okay, create CI/CD pipeline, then execute pipeline, then enable host port in EC2 VM security group inbound rules. Then finally, access our application in browser. So what will be the URL? Public IP colon, what is the host port colon, Maven web app. So this is the URL of our application to access in the browser. So whatever the application we deployed, that application is a Java web application, which is the name of the application, which is the context path of the application. So you need to configure Maven as global tool. You need to install Docker in the Jenkins machine. You need to restart the Jenkins server once the Docker is installed. Then you need to create CI/CD pipeline. Then you need to execute CI/CD pipeline. Build now option will be available, or you can configure trigger also for that. Then once the pipeline is executed, enable the host port in the security group inbound rules. Then you need to access your application in the browser. This is the pipeline that we created in the yesterday class. So this pipeline is a scripted pipeline or declarative pipeline. This is declarative pipeline. What is the meaning of agent any? It can execute on any agent machine. If we have multiple, if you have basically Jenkins master slave configuration, agent means slave machine. Job will be created on the master machine. Job execution will be happening on the slave machine. So for the DevOps people, that is important. What is Jenkins master slave architecture? Okay. Jenkins master slave architecture will be available. You see this image? Yes. So like this Jenkins master slave architecture will be there. We will trigger the job in the master, but the actual job execution will happen on the slave machines. So which is used to reduce burden on the Jenkins server. If you have only one Jenkins server, if you run 10 jobs at a time, load will be increased. So to distribute the load, master slave architecture will be available for the Jenkins. Good. Fine. So agent any. Then what is this? Any global tool. Okay. If you want to use particular version of Java, if you want to use particular version of the Maven, you can configure that as a global tool. And stages. First stage is git clone. I'm getting the repository. Okay. Second stage is Maven build. Second stage is Maven build. Then third stage, creating the Docker image. Fourth stage, deploying the Docker image in the container, creating a container. That's it. So this is our yesterday's workshop. Now fine guys, coming to real-time workflow. How we are going to use this Jenkins configurations in the real time. So what is our duty as a developer in the real time? So development team will send Jira request. Development team will send request to DevOps team to create Jenkins pipeline for the project. I can say microservice. So if you, nowadays everything is microservice. One microservice is one project. For every microservice, separate pipeline will be available. Okay. So if you take our major project, AR available, DC available, ED available. So every REST API is a separate project. For every project, separate pipeline will be available. Development team will send the request to DevOps team to create a Jenkins pipeline for the project. Or else I will say like this. DevOps team will set up Jenkins server. DevOps team will set up Jenkins in Linux VM. Okay. They will take one Linux machine in the cloud and they will set up Jenkins in the Linux VM. DevOps team will manage users in Jenkins server. So DevOps team members will have all the permissions in the Jenkins. They can create the job, they can edit the job, they can delete the job also. They will have admin permissions in the Jenkins. Development team members will have only read access and job run access. You cannot create the job, you cannot modify the job, you cannot delete the job in the Jenkins. User management will be there in the Jenkins server. DevOps team is going to do that user management in the Jenkins. For development team members, only jobs read and execute access will be available. Okay. For development team members, only jobs read and execute access will be available. Now, so you can see what are the jobs available and you can run the job also. Now, here development team will manage users in the Jenkins server. For development team members, only jobs read and execute access will be available. Development team will send the request to DevOps team to create Jenkins pipeline for the project. For every microservice, one Jenkins pipeline will be available. For every environment also, one pipeline. So dev pipeline, QA pipeline, SIT, UAT, prod. For every environment, separate pipeline will be available. So based on dev team request, DevOps team will create CI/CD pipeline for the project. Now, so dev team members can run CI/CD pipeline. For build and deployment. Okay. So here, as a development team member, when you want CI/CD pipeline, you are not going to create that. You need to send a request to DevOps team members to create the pipeline for the project. Based on our request, DevOps team will create CI/CD pipeline for the project. Dev team members can run CI/CD pipeline for project build and deployment. So in the real time, mostly on-demand builds will be available. They will not configure periodic schedules. They will not configure poll SCM. So whenever you want, you go and run the job to deploy your code into server. Okay. So dev team members can run CI/CD pipeline for project build and deployment process. So automated build and deployment will be available. Automated project build and deployment will be available. Are you guys clear with this one? Good. If any problem is there in the pipeline, okay, if build and deployment is failed, if CI/CD job execution failed, if CI/CD job execution got failed, then we need to check job execution logs. That is called console output. Job execution logs will be available as part of console output. So is it failing because of code issue? Is it failing because of Docker issue? Is it failing because of Kubernetes issue? So why it is failing? If there is any compilation issue in the code, then build will fail. Okay, if there is any problem with your database configuration, then it will fail. So if the job is failed, it is our responsibility to check the logs of the job. Build number will be available. Yesterday, we ran the job almost 12 to 13 times. Okay, sometimes it got success, sometimes it got failed. When it is failed, I'm able to go to the logs of the pipeline. I'm able to check the console output of the pipeline, and we understood. Sometimes because of a Maven issue, build failed. Sometimes because of Docker issue, build failed. Sometimes because of container name, build failed. How we identified those failures? By checking console output. So in the real time also, when you run the job, Sometimes it will be successful, sometimes it will be failure. When the job is failed, we need to troubleshoot. What is the root cause? Why it is failing? If it is because of code, we need to fix that problem. If it is because of infrastructure, we need to tell to DevOps team, boss, Kubernetes cluster is not running. That's why my deployment is failing. Okay. So there should be collaboration between development team and operations team, which is called DevOps. So, okay, developers and operations people will work together in the company to deliver the project to the client quickly. Okay, so that's why these DevOps practices came into picture. Now, see the real-time workflow. Real-time workflow. And again, this workflow is not common in all the projects. It is not common in all the companies. In some companies, DevOps team will take care of everything. In some companies, developers only should take care of the things. So I'm a developer. How I got this much knowledge on the Jenkins? In my company, we have to do everything. So in my company, Jenkins server setup, cloud infrastructure setup, we have to take care because our experience is 10 plus. So we need to work like full all-rounder in the project. When we want Jenkins pipeline, we have to create it and we have to deploy that. When I want Sonar, I have to create the Sonar server and I have to do the code review. There is no separate DevOps team. Developers only will act as operations team also. Dev plus operations we will take care. So once your experience is increasing, your roles and responsibilities will be increased in the project. Suppose if you are 1 year, 2 years experienced person, the manager will not ask you to do all these activities because your experience is 1 or 2 years of time. But our experience is 10 years. We need to do everything. We have more responsibilities in the project. DevOps team will set up Jenkins server in the Linux machine. In the real time, 100% Linux machines only will be available. DevOps team will set up Jenkins server in the Linux machine. DevOps team will manage users in the Jenkins server. Role-based access, guys. Here, role-based access will be available. That means DevOps team, what functionalities they can access in the Jenkins. Developers, what functionalities they should access in the Jenkins. Okay. For development team members only, jobs read and execute access will be available. Job creation, job modification, job deletion, that permission will not be available. Development team will send request to DevOps team to create Jenkins pipeline for the project. Based on the dev team request, DevOps team will create CI/CD pipeline for the project. Dev team members can run CI/CD pipeline for the project build and deployment process. If CI/CD job execution got failed, then we need to check job execution logs. We need to check the console output, why it is failed. If it is a code issue, developers should fix it. If it is an environment issue, DevOps team will fix it. Good. And so here, DevOps team will be doing the deployments, right? Non-prod environments will be available. Prod environments will be available. Non-prod environments, nothing but dev environment, SIT, UAT, pilot. These are called non-prod. Prod environment means live environment. For the production deployment, project release process, for production deployment, separate release team will be available. Separate release team will be available. Production Jenkins server will be separate. Okay. So in one Jenkins server, all the jobs for the project will not be available. So in the Jenkins for which you are getting the access, in that Jenkins, non-prod jobs will be available, which is within the company. If any problem also, we can resolve it. It will not affect on the business. But for the production deployment, you will not have the access. You cannot run the production job. So production job is used for live deployment, deploying the code into live environment. For production deployment, separate release team will be available. Production Jenkins server will be separate. Production production Jenkins server will be separate. We cannot access that. As a DevOps team, we cannot, as a development team, we cannot access production Jenkins server. So the Jenkins server you will access, it is non-prod Jenkins server, where the dev jobs, SIT jobs, UAT jobs will be available. Production deployment, separate server, separate job. So for that, dedicated team will be available when the code is deploying to production server. The team which is deploying the code to production server, that team is called release team. Production deployment will take 2 to 3 hours of time. Lot of checklist will be available when we are going for production deployment. Mostly production deployments will happen over the weekends. Friday night or Saturday early morning, Sunday early morning, the production deployments will be available. 2 to 3 hours of time, the production deployment will be there. Zoom call will be, bridge call will be available. Developers should join, testers should join, DevOps team, cloud team, operations team, release team, product owner, scrum master. 50 to 60 people will be there in the bridge call when the production deployment is going on. So that will take 2 to 3 hours of time. Sometimes if you get any issue in the production deployment, it will give 1 day also. Okay. So when I was part of the release call, our project deployment one time, it has taken 16 hours of time. We got the issue with the Kafka server. Code was not able to execute in the production. 16 hours continuous meeting was there to release the code to the production. Okay, production deployment is very sensitive. If you do any mistake in the production deployment, application is gone, client business will be gone. So for that, a dedicated senior DevOps team members will be available for the release process. Release team is separate. So non-prod and prod. So developers may get the chance to work with the non-prod servers, but we don't get the chance to work with the production server. So this is how we will work in the real time. So in the interview, they will ask, do you have any experience with the Jenkins? As a developer, do you have any experience with the Jenkins? Yes, I have experience with the Jenkins. We are using Jenkins CI/CD pipelines to deploy our application. Our pipelines will be created by the DevOps team members based on the request. When we are starting a new microservice development, we will send a request to the DevOps team to create the pipeline. They will create the pipeline. We will run that pipeline to deploy our code. So when there is an issue, we will check the logs of the build and we will identify the root cause. If it is a coding issue, we will fix it. If it is an environment issue, we will take the help of the DevOps team to fix that issue. So like that, you need to explain. Okay, see, learning in the class is different. Seeing in the real time is different. Here, everything I'm teaching, okay, you are clear with the concept, but in the company, the process is different. The corporate culture is different. Okay, if someone asks me, how do you work with Jenkins? I will tell like this. So as I am a developer, I don't have all the access permissions in the Jenkins server. My project is having a DevOps team. Dedicated DevOps team is available. When we want a pipeline, we will send a Jira ticket to the DevOps team to create the pipeline with our manager approval. Then DevOps team will create the pipeline and they will revert back to me through the Jira ticket. Then I will test the pipeline by deploying the sample code. If it is working, then I will close the Jira ticket. If the pipeline is not working, I will troubleshoot the pipeline execution by checking the logs. If I found a mistake from the coding standpoint, then I will fix that issue. If it is not from the coding, if it is from the environment issue or infrastructure issue, I will assign the ticket back to DevOps team to make sure the pipeline is working as expected. So as an experienced person, that is how we are going to give the answer in the interview. By listening to that answer, they will identify he is a fake person or genuine person. That communication is very important, which you cannot buttify with the classes. If you really see the corporate life, then only you will get that kind of statements. So that's very important. Practical knowledge is required. If you do this practice with your hands, then only you can answer that question. And your presentation skills are very important. Your communication skills are very, very, very important for the interview. Okay. If a person take your interview within 5 minutes, he can identify whether you are genuine or fake. Okay, but why people are selecting the fake people also? If they have subject, then communication they can learn once they join in the company. If we have the subject, then we will select the candidate. So we will understand within 5 minutes fake person or genuine person by seeing the way that he is presenting the subject. With that we will understand that. Good. Any questions so far?
Sir,
Yeah.
in our organization, we are not using any Jenkins, but using GitLab, sir. Then how the pipelines are?
In the GitLab, you can directly write the pipeline, sir.
Okay.
That pipeline, some people will write the pipeline in the Jenkins. Some people will write pipeline in the GitLab. From the GitLab, they will directly trigger the pipeline. Okay, let me upload these notes in the website.
Jenkins video is not uploaded in this.
It is there in the YouTube live, sir. You can check it. I will ask the team to upload today. In the website portal also they will upload. It is already there in the YouTube.
Yeah, in YouTube it is there.
Yep. I shared the link also in the WhatsApp group, na? Did you check your WhatsApp group?
No, sir.
Yeah, please do that.
Thank you.
I
Good
think
evening, sir.
we got a lot of views also for the Jenkins video. Saturday we conducted live on that. I think many people are watching that one. Now you see, just within one day, it reached to around 5,000 people. 5,000 people has watched that video. So that means a lot of demand is there for the Jenkins tool. Okay. So previously, I conducted one Jenkins workshop like this only previously I conducted. So 1 year ago, I conducted Jenkins same kind of workshop. So 126K views, 1,20,000 people watched that video. So you based on this, you understand how much demand is there for Jenkins topic in the market. Okay. So earlier, only DevOps people used it to work with the Jenkins. Now developers also working with the Jenkins. And how many of you attended ChatGPT with boot integration? You understand? What is that? What is that integration? So there is a REST API given by ChatGPT platform. Our Spring Boot can access that REST API. So instead of asking questions to the ChatGPT, we can ask the questions to Spring Boot. Then Spring Boot will talk to ChatGPT, will get the response and will give the response to you. So we can build chatbot by using our Spring Boot also. You got that? Good. Fine. Any other questions, anyone?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes, tell me.
So yesterday you told us about the questions related to Jenkins. There was one question that was, can you tell me what plugins you have installed in the Jenkins?
Yeah, we can
And
say that Maven plugin, Nexus plugins. Okay. Maven is one plugin, Git is one plugin, Nexus is one plugin, Kubernetes plugin. We can say that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep. Yes, guys. In the notes, I have given the Jenkins video link also. It is that Saturday live is happened for the Jenkins. That video is there in the YouTube also. The link also I pasted in the notes. If anybody want to go through that process once again, they can go to this video, and pipeline code directly I have given in the notes itself. This is the final CI/CD pipeline script that we created. This pipeline is a scripted pipeline or a declarative pipeline. This is a declarative pipeline. Very good. Let me update this again. For 36 batch Spring Boot people also, I have uploaded this Jenkins notes.
Sir.
Yeah.
Suppose my Spring Boot application running in local machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when my database running on the container, Docker container, how we can connect with each other?
Yes, sir. You need, instead of local host, you need to give the IP address of the machine where your database is running.
In the desktop, I am running like
yeah, no problem. Wherever, if it is
AWS.
running in the same machine, then local host only you will give for that.
Hello,
I
sir.
am putting local host. It's giving some errors. Okay, I will check.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, sir, I was asking that for DevOps experienced guys and for simple developers who are experienced with 2 years or 3 years. So,
Mhm.
the questions based on Docker and Kubernetes and Jenkins will be different, right?
Correct. Different. Yeah.
In the interview.
Yep.
So,
Right. For the DevOps people, they will ask at the admin level. For the developers, they will ask about how to use the tool, how do you perform operations with the tool. Basic questions will be available.
So this is one request to you, sir, if possible, for developers, if you can give some demo questions based on Docker.
I will, sir. For every tool, I will give the questions, sir. For every tool, I will give the questions.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir, is it necessary to, why is it necessary to, sir, download Maven as a global tool, sir? Can't we download on a Linux
You
mobile system directly?
you can install directly on the Linux machine also, but in the real time, one Jenkins machine will not be available. So in the real time, as I told you, master slave architecture will be available. Na?
Okay.
So if you are installing manually in all the machines, you have to install the Maven. So if you install as a global tool, you no need to install in all the machines.
Okay, sir.
You got the clarity?
Yes, sir.
Sir, in non-prod environments, Kubernetes will not be used, no, sir, because
Sorry?
like basically in non-prod environments,
Kubernetes will be there in the non-prod also.
like basically the number of requests will be low, no, sir. Like it is for internal testing.
Correct.
We'll be using
Correct. Yeah, in
non-prod
the internal
environments.
also we'll do that.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
In Docker container, which server we are using for deployment, sir?
It is Tomcat only, sir. If it is Spring Boot application embedded Tomcat only, we will use.
If you want to use any external server or
normal
other...
Tomcat. So yesterday we deployed it with the external server only. So with this project is deploying on the Tomcat server, right? Docker will install the Tomcat server. You no need to install the Tomcat server.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep. You don't need to do that.
Hello, sir. Sir.
Yep.
Like, please make a video on like the developers who are working on maintenance project and interview questions for the people who are working on maintenance project, because the people who are having 2 years experience, they can't say that we worked from scratch project.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
Sir, if CI/CD pipeline got failed,
Yep.
and the reason is our code mistakes, then what will be the mistakes? There are the common mistakes in code or
Common
or
mistakes.
anything.
Yep.
Yeah. What are that common mistakes, sir?
In the Jenkins?
Yeah.
Common mistakes means pipeline creation. So for developers, nothing will be there. For DevOps people, pipeline issues will be there.
No, if CI/CD got failed because of the code, right? Sometime it got failed because of the
compilation issue. Compilation issue. Some people
Oh.
some people committed the code without compiling properly. Then we will get that issue.
Okay. Because sometimes they can ask that question also.
Yeah, compilation issues will be there mainly. Compilation issue, database connectivity issues will be available.
Yeah. And sir, when will you conduct a session for resume building?
This week, sir. This week we will be having that.
Yeah, because I want to start applying for
Yes, sir.
the
We want to apply for jobs, so we want content.
Yes, sir. Mostly on Thursday, I will conduct that, sir. Okay. Yeah. Fine, guys. So with this, we are done with what is the Jenkins. With this, we are done with what is Jenkins and how to work with Jenkins. The next one, the next tool that we are going to learn is JUnit, guys. Okay. So as of now, we learned several tools like Git tool, Maven tool, Sonar tool, Nexus, Docker, Jenkins, we completed, right? So another logging also we completed. Another important tool for the developers, JUnit. It is a pure developer related tool. So JUnit is not a DevOps tool. It is a pure coding tool which is used for unit testing of our application. So JUnit is not that much easy. JUnit is not that much easy because we need to do the coding that is used for unit testing of our application. Once this JUnit tool is completed, then I will explain resume preparation also. Parallelly, you know what project you need to keep in the resume, what is the architecture of the project and all. So you people can start applying for the jobs with some experience. You will get some interview experience. Parallelly, we will work on the project development and we will work with some AWS cloud services, Linux commands and all that stuff. Okay. So now for next 2 days, 2 to 3 days of time, we are going to spend for JUnit unit testing related stuff with the code coverage. Once the JUnit is completed, then we are going to learn resume preparation. As a Java developer, as a fresher, how we need to prepare our resume and how we need to prepare our resume as an experienced developer. Okay, all that part we are going to learn. By Thursday or Friday, we will be good with this resume preparation also. Got it? Fine. Okay, good. Let's get started with what is JUnit. Okay, fine. So let's get started with what is JUnit. JUnit is a Java-based framework, guys. What is a JUnit? It is Java. JUnit is free. JUnit is free and open source Java-based framework. JUnit is a free and open source Java-based framework. JUnit is used for Java applications unit testing. JUnit is used for unit testing. Okay, so JUnit is used for unit testing. So now we need to understand what is unit testing and why we need to go for unit testing. Okay, what is unit testing? What is unit testing? Testing individual components of the application is called as unit testing. Testing individual components of the application is called as unit testing. Okay, now if you take an example, we are going to develop our application. Okay, so in our application, controllers will be available, guys. Services will be available. Repositories will be available. Now inside this repositories, no logic because we are using data JPA. So there is nothing to test in the repository. We are not writing any methods. We are not writing any logics in the repository. But we will be having services in our project. We will be having controllers in the project, right? Multiple controllers or REST controllers will be available. Nowadays, everything is REST based. REST controllers will be available in the project. This REST controller will be talking to service methods. Service method will be talking to repository method. Now, when we are going for unit testing, here assume that there is a M1 method is available and here there is a M2 method is available. So this M1 method is calling M2 method. I'm taking the sample method name. M1 method is available in the controller class. M2 method is available in the service class. But when you go for unit testing, we will test only M2. That is called unit testing. M2 is one individual method. M1 is one individual method. Testing individual components of the application is called unit testing. So whatever the code I'm writing in the M1 method, is it working as expected or not? Okay, whatever the code I am writing in the M2 method, is it working as expected or not? So testing every method individually is called unit testing. So to perform this unit testing for our application, we are going to use a tool called JUnit. So tell me, what is the JUnit here? Come on guys, what is the JUnit here? JUnit is free and open source Java based framework. Where we will use JUnit in the project? JUnit is used for project unit testing. JUnit is used for project unit testing. What is the meaning of unit testing in the project? Testing individual components of the application is called as unit testing. So unit testing is used to identify code is working as expected or not. Okay, so what is the main purpose of unit testing? Unit testing is used to identify our code is working as expected or not. Our code is working as expected or not. Then unit testing is used to identify bugs in the code. Unit testing is used to identify bugs in the code. With the help of unit testing, we can identify bugs at a early stage only. Instead of testers identifying the bugs in our code, we will test our code. We will only identify what is the problem in our code. If testers identify the problem, that is a reputation issue, right? I have done the coding. I have given for the testing. Testers told that your code is not working. So that is a shame on me. So before we are giving, if testers identify the bugs in your code, that means you are not a quality developer. So you done some coding, but there is no use. So many bugs are coming in the testing. Testers are identifying the bugs. If a lot of bugs identified in your functionality, manager will call you. What are you doing? Why these many bugs are coming in your code? So you are not doing the proper coding in the project. You are not maintaining quality in the project. So that kind of quality issues will be there in the code. So that's the reason once we done with the coding part, before giving our code to the testing team, we have to test code ourselves. We have to test our code is working as expected or not. So for that reason, we are going to perform unit testing for our application. So what is the meaning of unit testing? Testing individual components of the application is called as unit testing. Why we are going for this unit testing? It is used to identify our code. I mean to say our methods are working as expected or not. Unit testing is used to identify bugs in the code. With the help of unit testing, we can identify bugs at the early stage. That means we can identify bugs before giving to testing team. So if I give my code to testing team, if they find the bugs in my code, that will affect on my performance in the company. So that is the reason every developer should do the coding plus testing also. Whatever the code you write, you need to check your code is working as expected or not. For that, we need to perform unit testing of our application. Unit testing will help us to produce quality code. With the help of unit testing, by using unit testing, by performing unit testing, we can provide quality code to higher environments. By performing unit testing, we can provide quality code to the higher environments. What is the meaning of quality code? What is the meaning of quality code, guys? We can provide bug-free code to higher environments. What is the meaning of higher environments? What is the meaning of higher environments? We are doing the coding in the local dev environment, SIT, UAT, pilot, production, like that multiple environments will be available. Those environments are called as higher environments. Okay, so to provide quality code to higher environments, we are going to perform unit testing. So to perform the unit testing, we will use JUnit. JUnit is free and open source Java based framework. Okay, when you develop the project, multiple classes will be available, and multiple methods also will be available. Sir, I will use Postman. I will use Postman to test my application. If you are using Postman to test your application, that is called integration testing. You will send a request to REST controller. REST controller method will call the service method. Service method will call the repository method. It will talk to the database. So if you do testing from here to here, that is called integration testing. We are not talking about integration testing. We are talking about unit testing. Unit testing means only service method should be tested, not controller method, not repository method. When I want to test a service, only service method should be executed. Repository method should not be executed. Controller method should not be executed. When I go for controller method testing, only controller method should be executed. Service method, repository method should not be executed. That is called unit testing. Okay. So we need to test individual components of the application. So there is controller method. Controller method calling the service method. Service method calling the repository method. As of now, how we have done the testing for these methods, guys? How we have done the testing? We will use a Postman. Using Postman, I will send a request. It will go to REST controller. What this REST controller will do? It will talk to service. Service will talk to repository. Repository will talk to database. Then what is this process? Everything we are testing, right? We are testing the complete flow. We are testing the complete flow, which is called integration testing. Who will do that integration testing? Developers will do. Testers also will do the same integration testing. But here my requirement is, I need to test only service method now. My service method is calling repository. But when I am doing the testing, service should not call the repository. That is how you need to do the testing. That's why unit testing is difficult, guys. Writing the normal code is easy, but doing the unit testing is difficult. Lot of developers are facing challenges with the unit testing in the project. Why? Because when we are going for unit testing, you need to test. Here, if you see, there is a M1 method is available. Inside the M1 method, this logic is available, and which is calling M2 method, and here some logic is available. Okay. Now, when we are going for unit testing, this logic should be executed. This logic should be executed, but this line should not be executed. Why this line should not be executed? It is another class method. Now, unit testing means I should test only M1 method. M1 is calling M2. I should not call the M2. Without calling the M2, only M1 logic should be tested. That is called unit testing. You got the clarity? What is unit testing? What is unit testing, guys? Testing individual components of the application. Testing individual components of the application is called unit testing. What is the main purpose of going for unit testing? It is used to identify whether code is working as expected or not. It is used to identify whether code is working as expected or not. Unit testing is used to identify bugs in the code. With the help of unit testing, we can identify bugs at the early stage only. By performing unit testing, we can provide quality code to higher environments. Okay. So now, what is isolated unit testing? When we are going for unit testing, we need to perform isolated unit testing. What is the meaning of isolated unit testing? Okay. So here controller methods are depends on service methods. Controller methods depends on the service methods. When we are testing controller method, when we are testing controller method, that time service method should not be called. That is called isolated unit testing. Okay, controller is one component, service is one component, controller method calling service component, but I want to test only controller. When the controller method is called, service method should not be called. That is called isolated unit testing, right? To perform isolated unit testing, we will use mocking. To perform isolated unit testing, we are going to use mocking. Okay, so what is mocking? What is mocking? The process of creating substitute for the real object is called mocking. The process of creating substitute for real object is called as mocking. See here, what is the meaning of mocking? My controller is dependent on the service, guys. My controller is dependent on the service. So when I execute controller method, what will happen? Service method will be called. But I should call it or I should not call it? I should not call that. I need to go for isolated unit testing. So why we should not call the service? Because when I am testing the controller method, if a service is called, service will call repository will talk to database, dummy data will be inserted, real data will be deleted, data will be updated, data will be modified. The real data will be affected. So that's why when we are going for unit testing, we don't use real database first thing. Test database will be available for that. And that too, when the REST controller method I am testing, REST controller method should not call the service method. But actually, my REST controller is dependent on the service. My service is dependent on the repository. When I'm testing REST controller, only REST controller should be executed. When I'm testing service, only service should be executed. Service should not call the repository. REST controller should not call the service. In order to do this operation, what we do is, as part of unit testing, my REST controller is dependent on the service. But in the unit testing, instead of talking to the service, what we will do is, we are going to create one mock service. We are going to create one mock service. This mock service will be created for the real service. In the unit testing, REST controller will communicate with the mock service instead of communicating with the real service. This process is called mocking. My REST controller needs a service, but not the real service. My REST controller will talk to a dummy service. The dummy service we are creating for the real service is called mock object. So when you are going for unit testing, we are going to perform mocking. For freshers, it is very confusing concept. Sir, already you have controller, you have a service. Why don't you test with the direct service? But in the industry, unit testing will not happen with the real classes. Unit testing will happen with the mock classes only. So what is mocking? The process of creating substitute object. The process of creating substitute object for real object is called as mocking. To perform the mocking, to perform mocking, we have mocking frameworks. To perform mocking, we are having mocking frameworks. What are those? Mockito is available, Easy Mock is available, Easy Mock available, Power Mock is available, J Mock is available, etc. Okay, there are several mock frameworks available in the market which are used for mocking. Okay, what is the meaning of a mocking? Simple example, man. We are watching movies, right? In the movies, double actors will be available. Hero will play the double role. What is the meaning of that? Now, recently we have seen one movie, Jawan, Shah Rukh Khan, right? He is playing two roles. One is father role, another one is son role. But in the reality, two Shah Rukh Khans available? Only one Shah Rukh Khan is available. But how we are able to see two Shah Rukh Khans in the same movie? Mock Shah Rukh Khan is available. One Shah Rukh Khan is real Shah Rukh Khan, another Shah Rukh Khan is the mock Shah Rukh Khan. That means they have taken another person whose height and body shape is equal to Shah Rukh Khan, and for the face, that Shah Rukh Khan print will be available. The cover will be available for that person. So if you see, we will feel two Shah Rukh Khans in the movie. But actually, one real Shah Rukh Khan, one mock Shah Rukh Khan is available. So dummy Shah Rukh Khan will be created for the movie shooting. Dummy Shah Rukh Khan is created for the movie shooting. That dummy Shah Rukh Khan is called mock Shah Rukh Khan. Similarly, here also, when we are going for unit testing, my REST controller should talk to service, but it should not talk to real service. Why it should not talk to real service? Real service will talk to repository, repository will talk to database. I don't want that. What is the meaning of unit testing? Only REST controller method should be executed. REST controller should not call the service method. If REST controller is calling the service method, that is not unit testing. That is integration testing. Are you guys getting my point? So what is the meaning of unit testing? Testing individual components of our application. Testing individual components of our application is called unit testing. So when we are testing our methods, every method is independent, or one method will talk to another method, one method will talk to another method. So here in the unit testing, my M1 should talk to M2, but M1 is talking to M2, but I want to test only M1. But without M2, can I execute the M1? No, M1 is calling M2. But what I need to do? Isolated unit testing. Then in that scenario, my REST controller, when I am testing the REST controller, it should not talk to real service. My REST controller should not talk to real service. So if it is talking to real service, it is not called unit testing. It is called integration testing. Then what I will do? Instead of talking to the real service, I will tell to REST controller to talk to mock service. Okay, I will create one dummy object for the service class. The dummy object I am creating for the service class is called mocking. So can you please tell me what is the mocking here? What is mocking here? The process of creating substitute object for real object is called mocking. So how do we perform mocking in the project? There are several mocking frameworks available. Mockito, EasyMock, PowerMock, JMock, like that there are several mocking frameworks available. We can use any mocking framework to perform isolated unit testing. We can perform isolated unit testing by using mock framework. Are you able to follow this? Now, here I'm having service method, guys. I'm having a service method. My service method is talking to repository method, but I want to perform unit testing only for service. Then what I need to do? For this repository, I will create one mock object. My service will talk to mock object. Mock is a dummy. Nothing will be there. It is a dummy. Just for calling purpose, mock object will be available so that only service method can be executed. Repository method will not be executed. When I'm testing controller, only controller method logic will be tested. When I'm testing service, only service method logic will be tested. Once a unit testing completed, then integration testing from Postman, controller to service, service to repository, repository to database. Okay, that is integration testing. But what we are learning today? Unit testing. So to perform this unit testing, we are going to use a tool called JUnit, which is very important and very confusing also. The reason for the confusion, mocking. Okay, for freshers, this mocking is very confusing. But if the person works in the real time for 2 to 3 years, they will understand what is mocking, why to go for mocking. But for freshers, it is a lot of confusion. You need to be very careful and you need to do a lot of practice. Then only you will understand this unit testing with mocking. Without unit testing and mocking, no project will be available. Every developer is responsible for unit testing also. You will write the normal code. For that normal code, you need to perform unit testing code also. So your business logic classes, REST controller services will be available. To test them, JUnit classes will be available. As part of the JUnit, mock objects are required. To create the mock objects, mock frameworks are available. Are you clear? Next one. What is code coverage, guys? When we are going for unit testing, there is a concept called code coverage. What is code coverage? Code coverage, it is used to identify how many lines are covered in the unit testing. My method is having 10 lines. All the 10 lines you have tested are any lines you missed for the unit testing. That will be identified by code coverage. Okay. What is code coverage? The process of identifying which lines are unit tested and which lines are missed in unit testing. Okay. What is the code coverage, guys? The process of identifying which lines are unit tested, which lines of code is unit tested, and which lines of code is missed in the unit testing. Okay. By using this code coverage, we will understand quality of unit testing. Okay. As a developer, are you doing proper unit testing in the project or not? We will understand by using code coverage. Industry standard 80% minimum code coverage should be available. Industry standard is minimum 80% code coverage for the project. So that means if your project is having 100 lines, 80 lines at least you have to test as part of unit testing. If your code is not having 80% code coverage, it will not be accepted for the deployment. Code coverage is also very, very, very important. That means proper unit testing we need to perform on the application. Then only code coverage will be improved. If your code is not having proper coverage, that is not accepted for the deployment. How do we identify code coverage? To get the code coverage report, we can use Jacoco. Plugin. Okay. In our project, we will add a plugin called Jacoco plugin. That plugin will tell you your code coverage quality. That means your code is executed in the unit testing, which lines of code is executed in the unit testing, which lines of code is not executed in the unit testing. We can identify by using a plugin called Jacoco plugin. Are you guys clear with my point? Yes. Now, so tell me, what is mocking and why we need to go for mocking? Come on. What is mocking, guys? The process of creating substitute object for real object. The process of creating substitute object for real object. The process of creating substitute object for real object is called as mocking. To perform mocking, we have mocking frameworks. Okay. What are the mocking frameworks available? Mockito, EasyMock, PowerMock, and JMock. Okay. What is code coverage? The process of identifying which lines of code is unit tested and which lines of code is missed in unit testing. Okay. Industry standard is minimum 80% code coverage for the project. Okay. Good. Which tool we will use to get the code coverage report, guys? We are going to use Jacoco plugin to get the code coverage report. Are you guys clear with this one? Perfect. What is the JUnit, guys? JUnit is a free and open source Java based framework. It is used for project unit testing. So in the projects in the real time, we will perform isolated unit testing. Isolated testing means every method should be tested independently. So one method will call another method, but in the reality for execution, but we need to perform unit testing with the isolation. Got it? JUnit is a free and open source Java based framework. It is used for project unit testing. Unit testing means testing individual components of the application. Unit testing is used to identify whether code is working as expected or not. Unit testing is used to identify bugs in the code. With the help of unit testing, we can identify bugs at early stage. Before giving to the testing team, we can identify the bugs. By performing unit testing, we can provide quality code. Nothing but bug-free code can be provided to the higher environments. What is isolated unit testing? Controller methods are depends on service methods. And when we are testing controller method, that time service method should not be called. So that is called isolated unit testing. To perform isolated unit testing, we will use mocking concept. What is the meaning of mocking? The process of creating substitute object for real object is called mocking. To perform a mocking, we have mocking frameworks. What are those? Mockito, EasyMock, PowerMock, and JMock. Okay. Then what is code coverage? So the process of identifying which lines of code is unit tested and which lines of code is missed in the unit testing, we are going to do the code coverage. What is the industry standard for code coverage? Industry standard is minimum 80% code coverage for the project. So to get the code coverage report, we are going to use Jacoco plugin. You got my point? Perfect. Fine. So with this, I'm stopping for today. In the tomorrow session, we are going to start unit testing for the Spring Boot application by using three things here. Three tools we are going to use now: JUnit, mocking, Jacoco. By using all these three tools, we will perform unit testing for our application. Okay. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we will work on this. Mostly, if possible, we can complete with for unit testing tomorrow. Code coverage we will try tomorrow, or day after. Code coverage is just adding a plugin. It will generate the report for us. Good. Fine. Any questions, anyone? PowerMock. In the Spring Boot, it is default. You no need to add separate dependency. Spring Boot will come with a test starter, right? In the test starter, by default, PowerMock will be available. Mockito, yes, Mockito is one framework. These are different frameworks available. Spring Boot is integrated with this one by default. If you don't want to use PowerMock, separate Mockito dependency you have to add and you have to use that. But Spring Boot integrated with the PowerMock by default. You no need to add separate mocking dependency. Boot is already providing that. It is providing some classes for you. With those classes, you are going to perform the operation. You can call tool or you can call a framework also. We are not going to install JUnit. JUnit is just coding part. So you can say Docker. It is a tool. There is nothing to do with the coding in the Docker. Docker software we have to install. For JUnit, nothing to install. How we are adding Spring jar files in the project? Similarly, JUnit jar files we will use in the project. JUnit classes, JUnit methods we will use to test our methods. So instead of saying tool, we will say it as a framework. It is providing some classes for you. Using their classes, we will test our classes. Jenkins is a tool. Why? Because Jenkins is a software we have to install. But JUnit, some people will call it as a tool. Some people will call it as a framework, because in the JUnit coding will be available. In the Jenkins and Docker, the setup will be available. Yep. Any other questions, anyone? Any other questions, anyone? Sonar Cube. Sonar Cube is already covered in the project batch, right? Yeah. In the Spring Boot, Sonar Cube is not there, guys. Fine. So tomorrow we are going to work with JUnit with mocking and Jacopo. Thank you, guys. Online people, any questions, anyone? You can unmute and you can ask me.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, end of the day in projects, Docker file will be created by developer only or DevOps people?
It depends on, sir. Some projects developers will create. In some projects, DevOps team will create.
But how DevOps people will come to know that what the
architecture diagram will be there, technology stack will be maintained. Na? They will know your project is developing based on which technology.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, how many still lectures are going to be conducted evening?
For Spring Boot?
Yes, sir.
This week is last, sir.
Okay, sir. And
we are almost
resume
done. We are almost done. Resume preparation also will be completed this week.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
In real time, if I develop the API, then the performing unit testing is my own responsibility, or there is a separate task for unit testing?
No, sir. You need to do that.
Yeah.
You should know how to do the unit testing.
Yeah. For each
method. Yes. For each method, you need to perform unit testing.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Fine, guys. Notes is updated for both Jenkins and JUnit. Please go through that and practice before coming to tomorrow's session. Thank you, guys.
Hello,
yes.
Sir, there is a morning batch for I think
Sorry?
microservices design pattern. Morning 7 a.m. batch. That is free for all.
It's not free batch, sir. It's a paid batch. 4,000 rupees is the fee. Separate faculty will take that. It's not by me.
Okay, sir.
Will you take the design pattern anywhere near future, sir?
Not now, sir. So another, because my slots are not there, he will take those classes.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, design patterns are mandatory to attend the interview, sir.
So for experienced people, it's mandatory, sir.
For 2 to 3 years of experience?
Yeah, yes, it's mandatory. They will ask those questions.
So, sir, we can't go by, we know is singleton design pattern or strategy
Those
design
are not,
pattern.
those are required, but those are not sufficient for experienced level. Some more patterns are required.
So, sir, what to do?
You have to attend that morning session if you want to learn.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes.
What is the duration of morning session, sir?
That is 45 days, sir.
For design patterns.
Only design patterns, 45 days.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, for the full stack development students, we have more than 15 topics in Angular. So
more than 15 topics. What are those?
Yeah, in the syllabus we have some list of topics will be there, right? For the Java stack, Angular.
What are Angular? Yes, Angular topics will be covered. Angular separate batch will be there.
So in this batch, you are not.
This is Spring Boot batch, right? Spring Boot batch topics will be completed. For if you are in the full stack, you will get the Angular classes also. Angular separate batch will be there.
Yeah.
For full stack people, Angular is part of the syllabus. But for the Spring Boot batch, Angular is not part of that.
The JRTP batch, it is there, no, sir?
Yes,
Angular.
sir. In the JRTP, Angular is there. Yes.
When it's going to start, sir?
Mostly
Angular.
this week it will start, sir. Another trainer is going to take those.
You will. And Kubernetes, you are only going to teach us.
Yes, sir. Tools from tool side, I will take UI side. I am not that much strong in the UI side. Okay. So another Angular trainer will take that.
No, Kubernetes, sir.
Kubernetes I will only take, sir.
Sir, this Saturday Kubernetes is pending or no?
This Saturday, no, sir. This Saturday we have the class on ELK.
ELK, okay.
Sir, one more thing I just want to ask. How many free demo sessions are there for microservice? Because I
Design
want,
patterns.
yes, sir. Vijay, sir.
Yeah, 4 classes are there. So today 1 class completed. Another 3 classes will be free.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Because I want to recommend to my friend because he
Sure,
want
sure.
to do.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So those design pattern classes are not available for the GRTB 25?
No, sir. Design patterns is separate batch, sir.
Okay. For microservice, na?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, hello, is Saga design pattern is in the course or not?
Yes, sir. Saga design pattern we will be explained.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So with this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again tomorrow. Bye-bye.